We'll get started right on time. It is 7:30 and we do have quorum. So I am calling the February 17, 2021 Board of Selectmen meeting to order. It's 7:30 p.m. and we will have a Pledge of Allegiance. Jim Tripp has some flags in his background, and if you all stand, please, for the pledge.
All right.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America.
And to the republic
For which it stands,
one nation,
under
God,
God,
indivisible,
with liberty
and justice for all.
for all.
Thank you, Jim. The next item is approval of minutes from the regular Board of Selectmen meeting dated February 3, 2021. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Moved by
Second.
Jim, seconded by Rick. I did not see any errors or omissions. Did anyone else?
No.
If not, I'll call for the vote. All in favor of approval of the minutes from February 3 indicate by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. The next is motion to accept the agenda as presented. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Who was that, please? Is it
Mike,
Jim,
Mike.
Jim, yeah.
Mike Pelton?
I seconded. Jim made the motion.
Thank you, Mike. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you. The next item under communications and correspondence, it's my honor and pleasure to introduce two student capstone projects from Portland High School. And one is Grace Darby. She's going to be presenting the complete map of Portland hiking trails that she has developed for our youth. And second, Lila Delarande will present a video that she produced, which is an update to the Welcome to Portland video. So we will start with Grace Darby. Welcome, Grace.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm Grace Darby. I'm a senior at Portland High School. And over the summer, I worked as an intern for the town tech department. A lot of the time I spent over the summer, I was working on what I'm about to show you, which is my map of all the hiking trails in town. So I'm going to share my screen so I can show you. Okay. Can you see it?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. So first, you can see this little pop-up. One of my goals for this project was to make it as accessible as possible for people, regardless of their skill level with computers. So I've included a lot of information about how you can navigate the map, but I'm going to show you around the map myself, so I'm going to skip ahead. The first thing you'll see is just this spread of the whole map. You can see, if you look closely, the trails that I recorded during the spring. I went out and hiked them myself and recorded my location using a special GPS device. Over here is this little information button that shows you how to navigate the map. So you can zoom in and out if you'd like. This home button will return you to the main screen where you can see all of the trails. If you want to pinpoint your exact location, you can use this button, which is helpful when you're on the trail and want to know where you are. And then of course you can toggle to full screen. Then here I've got this list of all the trails. So if you click on a trail, it'll zoom you to the trail itself. And then if you click on the trail, you can view some information about it. So here I've got the length of the trail, the difficulty relative to the trails on this map, and then the approximate time it takes to hike. And then I've also included some information about things like the terrain on the trail, some of the features, and then also some of them have some interesting history. This one, for example, follows the perimeter of a cranberry bog that used to be used for commercial harvesting. So I talked a little about that. And then for all of the trails, I took pictures as well. So that's pretty much it. I'm going to be making it public soon, so anyone can use this to go for a hike. And if you have any questions or comments, I'd be happy to hear them.
I have one, Grace. Will this be on our town website?
Yes, I will be updating the website soon with a link.
It's very useful. It's well done.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was going to be my question. How do we access it to to, to use it and go hiking. And I think this is great. I'm an avid hiker, so I would love to check out these trails. So would you access it through the town website?
Yes, there's a page, I believe, I don't remember the name exactly, but it's the tourist information page. There's already a
Okay.
map there. So I'll be updating the link soon, and I'll probably put a little announcement on the homepage as well.
Are you going to indicate that it is a capstone project from Portland High School? I think that would be valuable for people to know as well.
Yeah, I can add that for sure.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank
Susan,
you very much. Yes.
didn't we not too long ago approve some money for some mapping for the airline trail?
Yes, we did.
Is there any way we can get a link on the bottom of that brochure that will link you to this website?
I can certainly ask Mary Dickerson that. She's our contact. That's a great question, Mike. I will ask her that tomorrow. That's a
Okay.
wonderful idea.
Thank you.
Yeah, I did notice that the Palmer Taylor Preserve trails were on this map, and they're accessible from the airline trail. So yeah, maybe showing a connection there would be helpful. Because people are walking the airline trail, and maybe they could take a little side trek.
Yeah, and I think that maybe Lou could mention it to the committee as well, the Airline Trail Committee. Lou?
Sure, I'll talk to Riz and the committee, and I think that's a great idea. Grace, this is going to be wonderful, not only for people in Portland, but a lot of people that love to hike from all over the state will be able to see these hiking areas. So that's going to be just a plus for all the trails in town. But like Rick Shaw said, that there's two trails that are connected to each other, so that you can go on one and then do on another one while you're doing the first one. So congratulations and thank you for doing this.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I was just going to say, very well done. I think it's going to be a nice one. It's nice to see all the different hiking trails we have in town in one spot, nice and easy to find. But I also like the idea that if somebody's sitting out there and can look this up on their cell phone, they can go to the town website, and based on where they're located, they can see where they are in relation to the trail. So very nice project, very nice, very well done. Thank you for doing that.
Thank you.
Very much. I think we are ready for Lila. Lila? Good evening.
Hello, I'm Lila Delarond. I'm also a senior at Portland High School. And for my capstone project, I knew I wanted to do something regarding film production, because that's what I want to go into as a career. And I also wanted to do something involving my community here in Portland. And I was also an intern at the town tech department this summer. So it was the perfect opportunity for me to update the Welcome to Portland video. So I'll show that to you guys, and then I have a few questions I'd like to ask about it. So let me share my screen. Where is it? Chip loading. Can you guys see my screen okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, you can.
Mhm.
We can't hear the audio.
I don't hear any sound.
Yeah, and there's no sound on it. I'm gonna guess.
Yeah, the Zoom settings have something about it.
Let me see if I can find sound. Oh, here we go.
All right.
maybe start from the beginning, Lila?
Yeah.
And then there's also,
Let's see.
yeah, there's also a setting to optimize it for like a video,
For video.
so it'll play a little better.
Oh, okay.
I think it's like a check mark when you start sharing. You might have to share again.
Okay. I pressed those. Let's see if this works.
Hello, my name is Susan Bransfield, and as first select woman, I welcome you to the town of
You
Portland.
hear that?
Portland is one of the best kept secrets in all of Connecticut. Our quiet town is located along the Connecticut River in the middle of the state. It's a great
Can you guys hear that?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Just wanted to make sure.
place to live, and it's a great place to visit. Portland maintains its 19th century appeal with historic homes and the National Historic Landmark, the famous Portland Brownstone Quarries, where you can wakeboard, zip line, and swim at the Brownstone Exploration and Discovery Park. When we invite you to come on over, we emphasize the contrast between our quiet town and the quick-paced tension of nearby cities. For those who work out of town, coming back to Portland at the end of the day is truly an escape. It can be that way for visitors too. Portland is a community in the truest sense of the word, a village centered on families, friendships, and old-time traditions. Neighbors meet at local shops, town meetings invite participation. A newly renovated library is a center of learning for people of all ages. Our award-winning schools have been nationally recognized. Portland is proud of its farms, its businesses, its parades, concerts, and fairs that are held throughout the year. In 2020, we dedicated a brand new outdoor recreational complex with walking trails, exercise equipment, and ball fields. Our Airline Trail offers great outside walking and cycling. We have 3 golf courses, 7 river marinas, and the ever-popular YMCA Camp Phelps Ingersoll. Portland has an active sidewalk, road, and utility improvement program. We have wonderful public safety with an excellent fire department and a full-time police department. We hope you agree Portland is a great town. We welcome you to come on over. You'll be glad you did.
How can I move in? How can I move to Portland?
Yeah. I'm sold.
Yeah.
Really good, Lila. I hadn't seen all those pictures. They look really good. Yeah, I think, it'll be clearer on our website. It's a little difficult to screen share YouTube. But, have you already placed it on the website, Lila?
Yes, it's on YouTube now, and it should be on the website also.
Okay.
So I had a couple questions. As a tourist who's not, if you were a tourist who was thinking about coming to Portland, do you think the video would help you make that decision at all, or?
I think so. I mean, when you look at the golf courses, the marinas, the Brownstone exploration, the parks and the walking trails, those are a lot of what attract people to come here to recreate. So I think that was well done.
Thank you. Right. Is there anything in the video that you wish had been highlighted that was not necessarily in there?
Maybe St. Clemens Castle?
Yeah, I was gonna say the same thing, Mike.
Oh, sorry, Rick.
Yeah, that's all right.
Stole
No,
your thunder.
no.
And I was thinking, one of the things that the Economic Development Committee talked about maybe a year ago was how Portland is a health and wellness community, and people love health and wellness. So the only other thing I could think of that could probably be something, and you did touch on it with farming, is that we do have roadside stands that serve natural vegetables and fruits that were planted and grown in Portland or nearby. So that's just another, but overall, you did a wonderful job. I think I'd like to come to Portland and live.
Do you guys have any other questions or comments for me?
Lila, I might also have mentioned the state forest and sort of a play on the, you know, the whole hiking trail thing and the recreation in the state forest. So if you want to like cater to tourism, the golf courses, the river, the state forests, the airline trail. I write some real estate ads and I always try to play that, include those things in when I'm trying to talk up Portland.
Right.
Plus its proximity, which Susan kind of touched on. You know, we're really close to the cities in Connecticut. You can get almost anywhere very easily from here, but yet we have this quiet little country enclave, which is really what makes Portland such a, you know, a special place in my mind. So, you know, I mean, and I don't mean it's not, I'm not trying to be critical at all. I think it's great what you did. So you asked for feedback. That's the only reason why I'm mentioning it.
Right. Lila, this is Mike. I just have two things. One is, and you're kind of an example of it, is the schools in town are really good.
There you go, too.
Want to remind them that they have students like you, both of you, doing what you do. So I think that's wonderful. My other question was, tell me a little bit about how long it took you to put this together. And kind of share a little bit like part of the adventure.
Yeah, well, our capstone proposals, I think, had to be in by around June of last year. And I knew that I wanted to work with the town on a video, but I didn't actually edit the video until around last month, but I collected, me and Grace and Nick collected a lot of footage throughout the summer, which is why everything looked so green. And then I just needed a couple little clips at the end. So I finished it around January. So it took a good amount of months to get it completely done, but it worked out really well.
All right. Really good job. Really good job.
Thank you. Thanks. Okay, well, thank you so much. And special thanks to Mrs. Bransfield for being in the video too. So
Welcome. It was my pleasure, and look forward to more projects that you're going to produce. It's really well done.
Yeah, thanks for doing that.
yeah,
It's really
of course,
nice.
thank you.
Thank you.
Lila also helps on occasion run our meetings. You don't always see her, but you may hear me sometimes ask Lila to help. And Nick, who's assisting tonight, is also part of Town Tech, and Grace Darby as well. So as you pointed out, Mike Pelton, the attributes of our schools are manifested in our students and their production and their abilities. So we're very proud of the 3 that are here tonight and the many that are able to be with us. And special thanks to not only Portland High School, but to Dave Kosminski, who has really shepherded this project, as well as many, many others, and in particular, the Town Tech Association between general government and our schools. Can't say enough great things. And Dave is at another appointment tonight, but we want to thank him as well. Great job. Okay, now we can all go home, right? No. That was fun. Thank you.
Yeah, it was fun.
I like that.
Students. We'll open it up for public comment.
We don't have any, I think we have one, which was about the airline trail with Grace. It was just from Andy, but he said maybe we should put a notice on the airline trail kiosk about the app.
Oh, that's a great idea for the app that Grace Darby has developed.
Yeah.
Great idea, Andy. Thank you. There will be public comment later in the meeting as well, and I know that some people called ahead and they wanted to be certain that after Andy and Lou Pear present on clean energy that they would be able to speak. So we'll certainly make that time available later in our meeting. Next, number 7, old business, racial equity, diversity, and inclusion. And I know April Graves is here for her report. April?
There she is.
Hi. Sorry, I had to get approval to be unmuted. So the Portland Task Force on Solidarity met last week, and we reviewed the survey data from our recent survey that we sent out. We ended up with 170 responses. And our next upcoming event, which is kind of piggybacking off of the results from the survey, will be our community forum, which will be coming up this Monday, the 22nd at 7 p.m. You can access it through Zoom B on the town website. And the people that will be participating in the community forum are representing Youth Services Department will be Mary Pont. And then from the Board of Ed, we have Tim Lavoie. And then representing the Portland Public Schools, we have Dr. Charles Britton, the superintendent, as well as Eric Martin, who is the director of curriculum and the principal of the Portland Virtual Learning Academy. And then from the Board of Selectmen, we have Susan, Jim, and Michael Hernandez joining us. We are going to be asking the community to submit questions beforehand that we will then read to the participants at the forum. All questions need to be submitted by noon on Monday, the 22nd, in order to be considered for the forum. It will be advertised in the River East this weekend, and we'll also be starting to advertise on social media. And then I know I also sent all of you the survey data responses also. And that's what we have going on.
All right, we look forward to that. Thank you, April. Great job. Your task force is very busy and getting a lot accomplished. So we'll look forward to participating, and I invite everyone to listen in. And if you have questions, as April said, please make them available to her ahead of time by Monday. Any questions for April? All right. Thank you very much. We'll see you soon.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome. Under old business, I do not have anything to add about reentry committee, other than we're looking forward to another vaccination clinic for residents 75 years of age and older. There is a waiting list of over 100 residents, and we anticipate that will be the first week of March. The Chatham Health District is conducting vaccination clinics throughout the towns of the health district. And they have assured us that they will return to Portland. They've done 2 in our town. One was for anyone in the state to attend, which was held at Portland High School earlier in the month. And the one that was held in Portland at the Senior Center had, I believe, over 80 folks that are age 75 and older. Their second vaccination will be toward the middle of March. And the second vaccination for those that participated in the high school vaccination clinic will be February 20, this Saturday. So these are by appointment only. And if you need more information, I will repeat our hotline number, which is 860-262-7238. That is a hotline that you can call, leave your name and your contact information, preferably your phone number. And one of our librarians, Beth Kauska, Jen Rank, and Janet Nochek in particular, as well as others, have been answering those messages and helping seniors either access the VAMS system or put them on a list to be called for the vaccination clinics. So I encourage our listeners to participate if they have questions. Our library is doing a fantastic job with our senior center. Carol, Ravicki, and Mary Pont are assisting. And they're also having contact with our participants and the Chatham Health District. So I'm really proud of the work we're doing, and I think it's making a big difference. Our numbers of positive COVID cases are down, not only in Portland, but statewide, as is, I believe, hospitalizations are down, and we want to keep going in that direction. It's a concerted effort that seems to be paying off. Any questions?
Susan, I have a question. And well, first, a comment. I saw on the news, Connecticut news tonight, that the positivity rate in the state was something like 1.52, or it was under 2%, which is very good. On these clinics, are we still concentrating on the 75-year-olds?
The one that it will be held, as I said, hopefully the first week of March, the date hasn't been established yet, will be for 75 and older, because we still have a waiting list of over 100 people. Some of the 65 and older aged people have been also calling the hotline and leaving their number. They will be contacted. I can't guarantee when those clinics would be held, Rick. They haven't told us. However, the librarians can also give some assistance and some help so people could access clinics that are happening nearby, and they would assist them with the VAMS, the VAMS system, also give them some instructions perhaps on accessing the vaccination clinics being held at Walgreens and at CVS in the area, and also other information that they can utilize. There are toll-free numbers the state has set up, and I don't have those numbers here, but the library would be able to help people. You know, it's all about supply. So as more vaccinations are available, the more clinics are being held. And it is encouraging, I agree with you, Rick, that the numbers are down, and it's encouraging to see that more vaccinations are being made available to those waiting to have them.
Yeah, as a practical matter, I was able to get the first shot this week, but ironically, there was like nothing said, nor could we find online a way to schedule the second shot. So it's kind of like we're in limbo for now anyway, I guess.
Got to go on every day.
And yeah.
Clinics are added every day. It is important to keep up with that. Because they're going to be opening it up, according to the governor, to those who are essential workers and those with comorbidity. So there will be some additional groups within the 1B that will be added soon. He's also talking, the governor's also talking about enhancing the ability for groups. And that sounds really good for some of our, someone mentioned St. Clements earlier. You know, they have suffered greatly this year, not being able to host programs and weddings and other events. So if we can get rid of this virus and people are getting vaccinated, it's really going to help so many of us.
Okay.
The next item under old business is letter C, and in our town charter, it tells us that we are supposed to review the charter every 5 years. And I don't believe that we have officially looked at the charter recently. It's been a follow-up item on our agenda for many weeks. So I wanted to put it on the agenda. There are some, as I looked through it recently, there are some items in there, I'll call them some vestiges, things that maybe are a little dated that you might want to circle and be aware of. One thing that comes to mind is we're mentioning the health district. I think it talks about a health department in there. You might want to update some of that language. There may be some other items in terms of financial thresholds above which referenda must be held and other items of that nature. So I'll open it up for a few minutes. I don't expect to have an analysis tonight, but I'll put it on a future agenda. And if there are items that you feel after your review you would like to address, we can look at possibility. So I'll open it up if there's any comments.
Yeah, I had similarly looking at that, right? The fact that we talk about having a health director and we operate very differently now than we did when this was last adjusted. Another item that I thought we could take a look at perhaps is, you know, how we manage terms. The way we manage terms are all over the place. We've got, you know, 2-year terms, 4-year terms, 4-year staggered. We've got 5-year terms. We had, I think for ZBA, an individual who was elected who basically ran in the municipal election, but didn't end up taking office until a year after the election. So it may be an opportunity to try to align some of those things to be a little bit more effective. Similarly to thresholds, I think those thresholds are, you know, 10 years or more old. Are they still applicable? The best way to operate? And also I know like water and sewer, the way we manage the budgets and things like that, and the way that's spelled out, maybe just take a look at it and see if there's something we'd want to do, if there are opportunities for us to be more efficient Not sure that there are in that case, but again, just items like that that I think are worth looking at.
Thank you, Jim. Anybody else?
I
I
would,
have a question.
oh.
Oh,
I
You
think
wanna
I
go?
heard Ralph and then Rick. Ralph?
mine just a comment. I would, the only thing I would suggest is, let's put a date out there of which we want to have a review done by, so that we want to come back with comments, because I'd rather plan my time accordingly to know that if it's a month from now that we're going to have a item on the agenda, then I'll plan for a month from now to have thoroughly reviewed it.
A month from now would be our second meeting in March, which is St. Patrick's Day, the 17th of March.
And I just put that out. I mean, but I think that's a good window, but I just put it out.
Rick, you're next.
Okay, as far as making revisions to the charter, how does it logistically happen? Does the board vote on it, or does it have to go to referendum, or?
Yeah, typically you would appoint a commission if you think there's enough items that you want a group of citizens to look at. And then they have a prescriptive amount of time to look at it. And then they come back and forth and hold public hearings so that there's input from the community. But any change would have to be done at a referendum. Typically, they're done at a regularly scheduled November election, or if they're done at a special election, you have to have, if I'm recalling, at least 20% of the electorate show up and vote. And of that number, a majority would need to vote in the affirmative. At a special election, other than November, if it was held in May or it was held in August, if you don't have that 20%, it fails. So it's a lot of input that people would want to have on this kind of endeavor. Sometimes they bridge years. I mean, I don't anticipate that you'd want to have something done for this next November, but and you may not want to do anything. It's really in the charter that you, the board, should look at it and determine if you want to make changes. I thought there was a law, and I checked with CCM, and they said there is not a requirement that every 10 years you appoint a charter commission. But there is, it's just prudent to take a look at your rules and see if there's some updates that you want to either add, or some of the items that you feel may need to be adjusted to be more current.
Okay, so if we've deemed that we want to make, I don't know, some minor revisions or some revisions, whatever, then would we next appoint a commission or a board to?
Yeah, and on the 17th, I'll have the procedure for you. I have gone
Okay.
through this before. It's a lot of work if you appoint a commission to look at a charter. It's a lot of work because they need to look at every different section. There may, as I said, there may not be any recommended changes, but if there are, they have to host public hearings. And then you, the board, have to determine if their recommendations go forward and when they go forward to a referendum. But there's a whole sort of, I call it a prescription. It's like the recipe of how you do charter revision that the state law has in place. Yeah, I think we have a very good charter. I think that it has served Portland very, very well. Don Goodrich did a lot of work on this when he was I think even before he was the director of finance. And it's a charter that really, I think, had a lot of thought put into it, and it's proven to work very well for our community. There's several other people that have been on charter commissions in the past. And if you look in the front of the book, you'll see some of the citizens that have been on the commissions in the past. You know,
Yeah, I remember when we had a commission on it. It might have been back in the 80s. It was
Yes.
a long time ago.
Yeah, you're right. The first charter was voted on November 2, 1982, and implemented November 8, 1983. And actually, the members were Betty Curley, Don Goodrich, Tite Hale, Dick Hall, Rich Kirsch, Terry Larson, Bill Murphy, Paul Peterson, Frank Pierce, Ellen Roman was the vice chairman, and Charles Woltman. And then the more recent was, after a series of amendments, a fifth charter amendment was voted on November 2, 2004, and implemented December 2nd. And those members were Bob Agalotti, Bob Doak, Terry Larson, Tom Manning, and Jim McCabe. That's the last time any changes were made, 2004. Now, boards have looked at the charter and determined there wasn't a need to proceed. So it's been a while, and that's why I brought it up. And on the 17th, I'll give you how a commission would work together and whether or not it's something you're interested in pursuing or want to wait a little longer, that's fine too. We do have, many things that we're doing, but I think having a solid charter that's been reviewed is very important for our community. So I'll bring it up on the 17th of March if that's okay with the board. Thank you for your input. Good points. Old business, letter D, appointments, reappointments to boards and commissions. I think we have some appointments tonight. Rick, did you have some appointments?
Yes. I'd like to nominate Bobby Robert Hedrick to the Long Range Capital Planning Commission.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Seconded by Jim. Thirded by Mike Pelton. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries.
All right, I'll make a motion that we appoint Tom Malecki to the Long Range Capital Improvement Commission.
I'll second it.
Seconded by Rick Shar. All in favor? Aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries.
I make a motion that we appoint Michael Rang to the Long Range Capital Improvement Commission.
Okay, is there a second for Mike?
I'll second that.
Seconded by Rick. All in favor? Aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you.
And I have one more, and that is I'd like to nominate Malcolm Beeler to the Brownfield Redevelopment Focus Group.
I'll second that.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
I,
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Mike Suska, who was on the task force, has actually moved away from Portland, so he did resign from the task force. I want to thank Mike Suska for his work on the park committee, and he also was very active on the task force. He's a licensed environmental professional, and he was a big help to us, and hopefully he'll come back and visit again. Under new business, we have a request for a bid waiver from the Board of Education, and you received a letter late today. And the reason it came today is the Board of Education met last night to take a vote, and they are asking that the selectmen review their request for a bid waiver for the bus contract. I'll read a brief that they wrote. Dr. Britton and Stephanie Frigola, our business assistant, met with M&J Transportation and sent the proposed bid to the Board of Education's attorneys for review. The next step is to present this to the Board of Selectmen and move forward, hopefully with their contract. And the following motion, I believe, was voted on last night and approved to request from the Board of Selectmen a bid waiver for the Portland Public Schools transportation contract ending June 30, 2021, to enter into negotiations with M&J Bus for a 5-year contract extension and that passed unanimously last night. They're pointing out some items within their letter from Sharon Peters to us. Over the years, informal discussions have been held with M&J to talk about two major goals of the Board of Education, which is to achieve the best possible service for children and families in our town, and to obtain a financial agreement that minimizes the cost of this contract to the Board of Education and ultimately the taxpayers of the town of Portland. The discussions have led the board to believe that negotiating the extension of the current contract for 5 years from 2021, 2022 through and including 2025 to 2026 would be advantageous. They're proposing a 2% increase for the first year and then a 2.9% increase in each of the following years. The Board of Education believes that this outcome, especially given difficulties caused by the pandemic and uncertainty of budgets, both local and state, is in the best interest of the Board of Education, the families in Portland, and the taxpayers. Therefore, they are requesting the Board of Selectmen, and this is per our town charter, issue a bid waiver pursuant to the town charter that would permit the Board of Education to sign a contract extension with the current M&J bus company with certain language modifications that are agreeable to both parties and in keeping with the above stated annual increments. So I'll open it up for discussion.
So what you're doing is basically giving M&J the rights to be our bus company for the next for a 5 more year extension without any other bids.
As what they're asking, yes.
And they think that's a good idea because I don't know why. Why do they think it's a good idea? I don't think it's a good idea, but I don't know why they think it is. I know you just explained it to me, but it doesn't sound like a good idea. I don't know. I think you got to be competitive. I know we went back in the day with Nichols Bus Company because they were like a family-owned company within Portland. They knew the routes very well for 20 years, 30 years, whatever it was. I kind of understood that, but then when M&J came in, I don't feel like we're obligated to stay with them. I personally would like to see it to go out to 2, minimum of 3 bids to stay competitive. I don't believe they really hooked us up with any deals with the COVID, even when they were down, weren't providing transportation. I would just like to see other bids go out. That's my opinion. Thanks.
Mike, further discussion?
Yeah, I'll weigh in a little bit. I agree with Mike. I mean, this is probably, a few $100,000 bid for a bus company. And whenever we spend or purchase anything over a certain amount of money, we usually have to go out to bid. And it seems like it would be the right thing to do. I'm not sure why they want the waiver. That would be a question to ask. They must be very pleased with the company, that the competitiveness of the increase seems to be in line. 2.9, I'm not sure whether that's a reasonable amount or whether it's a high amount. I know gas prices are going to go up. We're going to have that an issue. I know that the bus companies had to put together more money to make sure the buses were clean and safe. So there's the COVID issues. So the 2.9 may not be that amount or that high amount. But I agree with Mike. I think that whenever you're spending that much money, they may be the best bid, but let's find out if they are, and if they're going to, and make sure not only are they the best bid, but are they, the other companies that are bidding, are they going to give the same service?
The letter from Sharon does say, over the course of a 5-year period, the anticipated cost is to be over $3,300,000. So that is the amount.
It just seems like a lot of money, and I'm guessing the other bus companies aren't going to come in with that price, or maybe a little less, but to give this company a waiver without finding out what the other companies are offering is not good business.
Further discussion?
Unfortunately, last night I sort of had a triple header of meetings, so I did not hear the discussion. I got on the Board of Education meeting late and didn't hear this discussion, but I know that one of the reasons that they were looking to do this had to do with the fact that the last time they went out to bid, being relatively small in comparison, the numbers didn't come back too well. So their concern was, I think they're asking for this because their belief is that if they can get something in line that's been negotiated this way while they're established, that may actually come in better than the bids. And there's a little bit of concern about what would happen if it did go out to bid. Those are the concerns that I've heard of the discussion. But again, I unfortunately was not able to be on that portion of the Board of Education meeting last night.
On the surface, are you done, Jim, or?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. Okay. On this, I guess I would like to know what the Board of Ed's rationale is, because on the surface, I agree with Lou and Mike. I mean, it's quite a bit of money that we're entering into contract for. I kind of question, the 2.9. How do they come up with that? That's certainly higher than our inflation rate has been, although admittedly, I suspect inflation and prices are going to be going up. And I mean, maybe, like Jim said, maybe there is some logic behind, but I'd kind of like to hear from somebody on the Board of Ed about what their strategy is. And also, generally, I don't like 5-year contracts, but in this case, maybe it's okay, but just as a general principle, try not to lock myself in, because too many things can happen over 5 years. I've seen prices go down just as much as go up sometimes. So, I mean, I just don't think we have enough information to say, yeah, okay, go ahead.
Yeah.
Mike?
Yeah. Rick, are you done?
Yes, I'm done. I'm sorry. Yep.
Just the other factor too, I agree with everything that you guys have said. The other factor is I'd love to know how they've done during the COVID. Like, how have the prices been? How accommodating have they been? What's been the working? I mean, maybe the working relationship's been great. I just saw a note from Dave also from the Board of Ed that said he wanted to maybe speak to this when he has a chance. But I'd love to know just a little more of the history. I tend to agree that a 5-year contract with that much money, I mean, $3.3 million is a lot of money. And I would want to know that was the best thing for the town. We're spending our dollars wisely, given all the issues we had with COVID and all the costs associated with it. So I'd love to know more. Maybe we can, I don't know what the timing, Susan, is on this as well. Is there a time certain that they want to have this done by?
What I would anticipate that I will allow, I know Laurel Steinhauser is on the call as well, but I will certainly bring back your thoughts. I do have a meeting with Sharon and the superintendent this week. I don't know that there is a fierce deadline here, and when we ask David and Laurel to speak, perhaps they'll be able to indicate that to us.
Great, thank you.
Is there anything else from the selectmen at this point? Because
Yeah, I guess I would,
Ralph?
I would agree with the general thought with the board, is that a little more information would be helpful in trying to make this decision.
And I know they're always happy to give us more information. Nick, could you allow Dave Murphy to speak first, please?
I think he unmuted me. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Sorry, you can't see my picture. I did something earlier to it. But, first of all, to answer Mike's question, when the Nichols Bus Company went out, or he retired, excuse me, M&J bought the buses and actually hired all the current drivers. So, because they were very familiar with the town and the people and the children. So that was a very conducive relationship. Second of all, when we went out to bid early on, we were getting some really wild numbers from people like Datco and stuff like that, because they have a corporate structure where they have to build in a lot more profit to, pay for people. So we also looked at other towns, and we were currently getting a really good price for what we were getting versus what the bids came in from other contractors. So I think one of the feelings is that if we can continue this relationship, if we go out to bid, you're going to go a much higher number. I can almost guarantee that. Because M&J really wanted to keep the relationship, so they've given us a pretty fair price and realistic increase every year. Whereas, we've looked around, trust me, when we first got the contract, and nobody could come even close to the M&J prices. So you run that risk that now if M&J has to start bidding, that they're going to say, hey, we want to be competitive with the DACOs of the world. We may take $100,000 increase. So you just got to be prepared for that. We felt that if we continued this relationship with a minimal increase, that they were willing to agree to, that we could probably save money in the long run.
Susan, can I ask Dave a question? Dave, one of my questions while we're talking about this, the bus drivers that are the drivers now, are they local, mostly local people?
Yes. Like Debbie Nichols, who used to be the Nichols family,
Right,
she's
right.
the supervisor for M&J, so she coordinates all of the bus drivers.
Okay, so my question is that we go out to bid, and let's say we go get a different company, these drivers may not be the same drivers. They might choose other drivers. Is that correct?
Correct. I'm sure DATCO has their own drivers and their own policies. So yeah, there's a risk. I can't say, I don't know how it will go, but I would say there's probably a good chance that we would lose a lot of the drivers.
So what I'm thinking is that if in fact, this is the best price, the concern I have is that some of these drivers may be local residents from town. Some of them may be residents nearby. In my experience of the drivers that we've had for the town of Portland, when the kids have participated, when our kids participate in sports and things like that, there were drivers that not only knew the route, knew the kids, knew the families, they were well respected within the community. And if that is a factor, then I think that it's not a bad idea to go forward. Because I wouldn't want a new company to come in and say, okay, all the old people that were drivers are fired, and now we have to work with people that may not know the families in the town, and the relationship may not be the same. So my experience of bus drivers, and Mike Hernandez knows what I'm talking about, is that there were some really great bus drivers that took care of our kids. And I think that that's the relationship that the Nichols Bus Company had going for it when they were the bus company. And I think they still try to maintain that with a new bus company. So if somebody can tell me more about how that works, that would help me make my decision.
Yeah, I don't know too much more, to be honest with you. I mean, if you have some questions, I'm sure Dr. Britton would love to come to a future meeting or whatever. I'm just trying to give you a little bit of background of why we thought the way we did. And trust me, we vet things like this. We're dollar conscious at the board, because, we fight for the lowest cost for everything. And we didn't even want to go with this 5 years ago when we first started this, but they were telling me the numbers from the other companies were just astronomically higher, and you're going to get a whole new, crew of people in here. You're not, we got the guarantee from M&J, when they bought the Nichols buses and stuff like that, that they would maintain the same drivers in the same relationship. So you won't get that probably with another company.
May I jump in for a moment?
Yes.
Good evening, everybody.
Hi.
Hi, I wanted to address what Lou just said. And certainly that was, I believe, an important consideration for Dr. Britton and for the board as well, that I believe we have a very good relationship with our drivers. Our families have good relationships with the drivers. That's something that, you know, the district doesn't take lightly, but that wasn't the only consideration. We looked, the personnel committee took a look at contracts that have been negotiated recently. And with this new contract moving forward, we will stay right about in the 50th percentile in terms of cost per bus for our district compared to other districts around us through the state. And what we were seeing with some of the other contracts that were being negotiated is that they were really all over the place. Contracts not only negotiated by M&J, but by other companies as well. So Charles was feeling pretty confident that this was an even and as even as we were going to get, because we were looking at some of, you know, other districts that had negotiated a lower rate in the first year. We're looking at 5, 6, 7% in subsequent years, which is obviously not a direction we wanted to head in. There was also some concern in speaking with our legal representative. There's some concern that if we go out to bid, that as a small district, that we might not have the draw to attract some of the larger companies anyhow, in which case we're at risk of M&J submitting a bid that's higher than what Dr. Britton has been able to negotiate. So after consulting with our legal rep and discussion as a personnel committee and with the whole board, we really felt that this was our best bet at a competitive rate.
Can I ask Laurel a question or
Sure.
Dave? But I guess you can direct it to you, Laurel, because you sort of touched on it. Like I was in my mind just questioning, okay, the first year was a 2% increase and then it jumps to 2.9 for the next 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
Can you comment at all on like what that was based upon? Is that, you know, say built-in salary increases for the drivers or anticipated fuel cost increases? How'd you come up with like the 2.9?
I can't. Oh,
Can I just say one thing, Laurel? And unless things have changed, we pay for the fuel.
Okay.
The town pays for the fuel. This contract is not for the fuel. Laurel, go ahead.
Okay, thank you for that. Anyway, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, and I wasn't a participant in that part of the negotiation process, so I can't comment about the specifics of those numbers. I know that there was a lot of back and forth between Dr. Britton and M&J, and that in all of our discussions that he's confident that that's as good as it's going to get. He does not, I mean, there's no way he's going to negotiate any lower, and he is confident that if we go out to bid, we're going to see bids that are higher than that.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I don't have more specifics than that. And the other thing I would say is that because it's an ongoing negotiation, I don't know that there's necessarily more that Dr. Britton would be able to share about how they're navigating that. But we could certainly ask him to come and speak with you all if you have concerns.
That would raise the question, what is the timing? Is there a timing or drop dead issue for executing this agreement? You know, is there a deadline?
I don't know if there's a hard deadline. I think it's this, you know, I think getting the ball in motion is important at this point. I think we would be, if we end up having to go out to bid, we'd be a little bit later than we ought to be, but I don't know if there's a hard deadline. Do you know the answer, Dave?
No, I don't. Yeah.
I remember a few years ago where we got caught. Oh, I'm sorry, Susan.
No, go ahead, Jim.
No, I do remember a few years ago where we got caught going out to bid later, and there was a negative impact on the contract rates. I was more thinking that if we're going to ask Dr. Britton to come in and speak, you know, is there time to do that when this has to be executed by? Obviously, knowing that the clock is then still running.
Well, I was going to say that if the selectmen feel they need more information, I know that Dr. Britton and the board is always willing to give us more information. I would ask that we have a meeting that we're going to be meeting very soon anyway, because we're going to be talking about budgets. So I think it would be prudent for us to get more information.
I agree.
Okay.
I have one other question. I remember this was the busing contract was an issue last spring when the schools were shutting down, and did we ever get, does the Board of Ed, did we get some sort of break, I guess, from the then contract that was satisfactory with the board?
We did get a small break, yes. And that's something that, again, without going too much into, because this is still being negotiated, but we've asked Shipman and Goodman to take a look at whether there are other districts that are including clauses in their contract moving forward in the event that something like this happens again, to have some protections for our district. So that's something that is being taken into consideration for the future.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Okay, if there's no further comment, I will invite our superintendent to give us a little more detail and bring it back to you. All right, I want to thank Dave and Laurel for helping out with filling in some of the questions that we have tonight, and we'll look forward to knowing a little more. Thank you for coming to our meeting tonight.
Thank you, Dave and Laurel.
Yep.
The next item is a report from our Clean Energy Task Force, and our liaison to the Clean Energy Task Force is Selectman Lou Payer, and Andy Bauer is here as well. So I'll turn it to Lou to introduce the topic to us. Lou?
Okay, I think it was about 2 weeks ago, the Jonas Center had a meeting that explained a little bit about how the power plant across the river in Middletown is going to try to put in a new turbine. And in that turbine is going to be more energy efficient. Yet because it's a bigger turbine and it's going to run longer, the emissions could be greater. So there was a concern about the environment and the climate changes on the part of the Jonas Center. And there were some council members in Middletown that had this similar concern. So it was brought up to us in the sense that living in Portland, we would receive maybe some of the emissions and the pollution that plant would spew out. And at the same time, the concern was, if this NRG company is going to build a new turbine, are they doing other things that are sustainable, such as wind and solar? And so those are some of the questions that were brought up and discussed at that meeting. And Andy was there on that meeting as well. And then there was another council meeting, I think last week. I had not attended that one, but I think Andy did. So with that said, I'd like to have Andy give us an overview on where Middletown stands and where we all stand in the area of energy production with this new plant, and if in fact the emissions are going to have an impact on the residents of Portland. So Andy, it's all yours.
All right, thanks Lou, and thanks everybody. It's good to see you all. So I just put in the chat the jonascenter.org, and that is the website of which John Hall, Portland resident, he is the executive director, and much of what I'm going to say tonight has been collected by the Jonas Center and is on their website. So thanks to John Hall for that. And also Professor of Physics Brian Stewart over at Wesleyan, who's done some of the number crunching. So as Lou was saying, it's a power plant issue across the river. As you guys know, there's two of them. There's the clean energy plant, clean with a K, and then there's the NRG plant, and they're roughly about a mile from each other. And this has to do with a proposed upgrade to the NRG plant. Okay, so currently there's some decades old turbines that are operating at energy. They're old, they're not so efficient. And because of that and a couple of other reasons, they're only permitted to run a few days out of the year. And so energy has decided to upgrade because if they don't, they won't be allowed to run. They're operating right now under something called a cap and trade system where they were able to pollute a little bit more because they were able to kind of like pay a fine, if you will. Now, they could have upgraded 15 years ago, but they have not. So energy has requested an emissions permit, which would allow it to run more if they do the upgrade. So as Lou was saying, yes, there is a decrease in pollutants from that new turbine, but because it would be allowed to run so much longer, like 60 times longer, all those criteria pollutants rise up. And I'm going to try to give you a video, sorry, not a video, but an animation. And I actually dug this off of the EPA website. As you can see, it's 2003. So this is back just past when the sooty 6 were cleaned up. And if someone just could give me a shout out if you guys are seeing that animation.
No.
No.
Oh no. Okay.
It's your folder and contents of your folder.
Yeah.
It may be because you're just sharing your file explorer and not your entire screen.
Could be. Let me see if I can adjust that.
Yeah, we almost saw it.
Yeah, okay, so. Anything coming through there?
No.
Not yet.
We're just seeing your list of files.
Yeah, okay.
I think we have Nick on. We have a very good technical advisor for Zoom running the meeting, so maybe he can give us some help.
Yeah, I would just share your entire screen instead of just the window, because I think like you're sharing your file explorer, and then once you open up the file, then it doesn't show that. So share like a screen instead of a window.
And if it's a video, right, Nick, he should do the optimization for video, or is that only for sound?
It's for the video, but I think this is not too intensive.
It's working.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, good.
Now we're seeing stuff.
All right. Okay.
Thanks,
Nick. Thanks, everybody. Okay, so what you're seeing is an actual ozone non-attainment animation from the EPA. And again, this is decades ago, so it almost doesn't count for the emissions. But what I want you to focus on is in this red dot here, because that's northern Middlesex County. And what you have there is known as an air inversion. So it actually doesn't matter what is happening throughout the rest of the Northeast. We are going to get hit. This is like, forgive me if this is somewhat of indelicate phrasing here, but this is, it's like a reverse toilet bowl. Okay, the emissions are created here and they hang out here. You'll notice this is 8 p.m. on July 4th, and that's when the monitoring stopped. But this is going to continue on for at least another hour or so. It tends to go away when temperatures start to decrease. That's us pretty much every day of the year when we're talking about the operation of those two plants across the river. Many Common Council members in Middletown appeared to sympathize with that concept. And I just want to give a special shout out to Ed McKeon of the Middletown Common Council, because he brought up specifically the concept to Middletown. Okay, we know what's in it for us. We get taxes. What's in it for Portland and East Hampton? And it was remarkable
Everybody
that,
with us? I don't think so.
well, it was remarkable the lack of response from NRG, and they're on a tough spot. They're in a tough spot because there is nothing. It's like the benefit goes to Middletown, and the emissions also in Middletown, but also in Portland and East Hampton. So the hope was that the Common Council would consider a resolution at the upcoming meeting to terminate the tax agreement with NRG. That would affect the financials of the operation of the plant. I could go into that a little bit more, but that's kind of a Middletown deal, so I'll kind of stop there. I can go into later if people are interested. I can tell you what I understand of the process. But the facts, I'm gonna go through a bunch of factoids here. These are collected from the Federal Energy Information Administration and from ISO New England. So Middletown already hosts far more electrical generation than they need to. There's 500 megawatts of combined generation between the two plants. Connecticut has just under 7,000 total. Connecticut is a net exporter of electricity, and certainly Middletown is. We don't need any more power from Middletown. I'm going to try this again with just a picture. And let's see if I can get this right. All right, is this slide coming through?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, great.
Yep.
So thank you. This is what the NRG reps presented last week to the Middletown Common Council. And I would imagine some of the numbers might be a little bit fuzzy, so I'll walk you through this. This is a great reduction for nitrogen oxide, NOx. This is a great reduction for sulfur dioxide, also known as SOx. Particulate matter, okay, from 0.08 to 0.06. Carbon dioxide from, 1,200 tons to 1,100 tons, not so good. But just keep in mind, these numbers are for one hour per megawatt. So the issue there, again, let me try to move to the next one, is not so much that it's really good to have just, it's a really efficient burner. That's not in question. But the fact is, if it's running at such a extended rate, then here's really what we're going to get. So our particulate matter, that's this very, very small particles. Those would go up by 540%. The nitrogen oxide would decrease a little bit. And I have to say, I don't really understand how this number at minus 16% gets them their permit, because it's supposed to be minus 20%. But I think it's the per megawatt, the per hour per megawatt emissions that counts with the deep application. That's my guess. And then lastly, carbon dioxide at over 1 million tons, it's an increase of 520%. Which is we just can't go there. In today's climate changing world, we need to do everything that we can to back off that. Such an increase would be in direct conflict with the state of Connecticut's statutory greenhouse gas reduction goals, the governor's zero carbon target, and the president's goal to eliminate carbon from the grid by 2035. The plant, if the expansion goes through, the natural gas is going to come a significant amount from fracked sources. In Portland, we passed a fracking waste ban a couple of years ago. None of that stuff is anything we want to have anything to do with. So I've got other notes about the tax abatement, but I won't go into those. So here's what I'd like to ask you folks, the Board of Selectmen, to do, which is to send a note to the Middletown Common Council and ask and basically say, just, you know, don't do this expansion. This is not going to do us any good. When I was at the Common Council last week, I said as much, that it's gonna send a whole bunch of pollution our way. And one of the interesting things that was raised by one of the NRG reps was running this plant on hydrogen in 2040, which I was like, that would be cool. That would be really good. I don't know why they're waiting to 2040 to do this. I mean, they could have done this 20 years ago. The technology was available. And at the Middletown Council meeting, there were several people who called in who were plumbers, steam fitters, pipe fitters, who were talking about jobs. And I'm thinking the win-win here is to not go with natural gas, but to go with hydrogen. It's a renewable resource, and it would, to my knowledge, be one of the more unique combinations of power being produced. So, you know, I asked the Middletown Council to consider that. They seem to like that idea. I mean, I don't want to take jobs away from anybody, but if you pair those steam fitter jobs with like solar jobs, which you would use to like produce the hydrogen, then you could have something that could be replicated around the country and around the world. So, you know, who knows where that's going to go. But again, I would ask you, the governing board of Portland, to make your thoughts known to the Middletown Common Council. Another option to weigh in is March 3rd. There is a DEEP hearing on this, and comments would be accepted until March 12th. Pardon me. So if you need time to think about, maybe I'll just, you know, we've done resolutions before, but any kind of communication to the DEEP about how you feel would be accepted up to March 12th. I mentioned those dates because you would be meeting early in March. You would have enough time to submit comments there. Last thing I'll say about just the world of energy is, you know, Texas has been in the news. You know, they're getting slammed, those folks, unfortunately, with record cold, and all of their fuels are suffering, whether it's solar, whether it's wind, whether it's natural gas, coal. We need to make the grid cleaner. We need to make the grid cleaner with energy storage, and we need to make the individual grids smaller. It's not so much that the power plants are taking a hit. They are down there, but it's also that the grid is not able to deliver the power where it's needed. So that's just kind of a big picture suggestion. I got a couple of updates which are more good news, but I'll pause there if anybody's got questions on the NRG stuff.
Andy, so I just want to be clear. you suggesting some alternatives for them instead of just building this big gas-fired generator? Like, is that where you were
Yes.
going with the hydrogen and maybe some, I don't know, some other fuel cell storage or something with renewables? I mean, it sounds like, you know, if we're going to say, just sort of in very general terms, if we're going to say, no, we don't want you to do this, but we should have some sort of alternative so they can still produce the power that they feel they need to produce, correct?
Correct. So Rick, the turbine can run on natural gas and it can run on hydrogen. And what I'm suggesting is NRG should look into running this plant on hydrogen, not, well, if they swap out the turbine, it'll be in place by 2023. So not 17 years after this new thing goes in, but how about like from day one? And you know, we need energy, we need power. Why not? You know, we kind of, if you look at all the downsides of a changing climate, we need to do absolutely everything we can. And one more natural gas power plant with its leaky pipelines emitting methane, with the stuff coming from fracking is not going to get it done.
Gotcha. And you know, you're right about that inversion. I mean, we're just the topography here. We're in a natural, you know, in the river valley with the highlands, you know, to our east, and then off to the west of Middletown up toward Middlefield. It's a natural spot for inversions to happen more frequently than in other parts of the country.
Yeah,
so we're whether, you know, we just have to, we can't do anything about that. I mean, inversions are going to happen. That's just a fact of meteorology. But we can hopefully have inversions that aren't full of pollutants.
Right. That would be good.
Yeah.
I think, Andy, one of the questions I have, and I apologize if I missed it, is this increased production going to support additional needs that are local? Or
No.
is this going to be going out of state? Like, I know we have the crosstown cable that ships power to Long Island, and obviously some commonality with the grid going north. So is it, you know, where is this going to be used?
The short answer, Jim, is I don't know exactly. I could speculate. I mean, we do have not one but two crosstown cables, and so you may note that there's not a whole lot of power plants on Long Island. Our energy goes there. You know, our energy goes. Our energy. You know, New England has a nice collective agreement, so whoever needs the energy gets the energy. But we with the two power plants, we have way more energy produced in Middletown, Connecticut than Middletown, Connecticut can possibly use.
I guess that's what I was kind of driving at. The rationale for, you know, why here versus closer to where maybe the immediate need is. But yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and I can tell you exactly why that is. We have a river for cooling, and we have distribution lines, which are electrical distribution lines, which are already built, and we have a pipeline which feeds natural gas. So I will say that those looked like smart decisions when they were built, but looking at our emissions profile, looking at a warming planet. You know, if this was a back to the future moment and we could go back and change things, that would be something that we should change. So.
Any other selectmen's comments? I'm interested certainly in knowing more. I'm not prepared tonight. I don't have anything prepared, but certainly we meet again regularly scheduled on the 3rd of March. So we could certainly have something further to discuss at that point. If there's not further questions at this point, I do know that we have at least one person that wanted to make a comment on the topic, and rather than waiting until the public comment, with the board's indulgence, I will allow Mayor Giuliano to speak. Is that okay with the rest of the board? Is there any objection?
No.
That's good.
No.
Okay, so Nick, if you could allow Mara to speak, please.
This is my first Zoom, so if I'm hitting wrong buttons, I apologize. I see some of my neighbors here, and that's nice to see. I hope you're all of the same opinion that I am. This problem across the river, I've lived on 280 Middle Haddam Road for 32 years. And it was not long after I moved here that I realized there was something very wrong going on. In the old days, and I'm ancient, when you had a filling done, it was done with mercury. And I remember mercury rolling around like little balls when you went to the dentist. And that's exactly what I found on my white table on my patio, maybe only 2-3 years after I lived here. When I checked with other neighbors like Bob Curtin, who's now deceased, Mr. Foster, Myron Foster, who was a builder who was much more upwind than I was, they all had the same problems. Bob Curtin had on the top of the swimming pool when he got up in the morning, oil slick, and he couldn't figure out where all this was coming from. This is a very long story. Let me suffice to say that I've been at this since 1997. I was at it with Don Mitchell, our sanitarian and health director. I've been at it with DEP. I've been at it with NRG, before that CL&P or whatever, whoever owned it at the time, Northeast Utilities. The bottom line was they put a screen up in my yard. They wanted to collect the material that I was complaining about, which they did. I think if I remember correctly, they left the screen up for about a month. Then there was a huge report that came out. Of course, they sent it to their laboratory. It wasn't an independent laboratory. And they named all the things that they'd found that were spewing all over the yard. But really, the bottom line was, they said that there really wasn't much in there that was harmful to anybody's health. However, should I see any vegetation in my yard deteriorating, or for example, if I had a vegetable garden, chances were pretty good I probably shouldn't eat what I was planting. And if I saw any of these particles that I had initially complained about, I should take cover. Those were the words. So I went over to Middletown and I visited with Dr. Havlicek, who was not gracious at all. And I actually have a file probably 4 inches thick. One of his remarks, or his only remark to me, was, "You live in Portland and I'm the health director in Middletown. And yes, I know there's issues. And as a doctor, I've seen a lot of asthma in this valley. But this is a political thing. And if you got a problem with it, you really ought to go up to the governor, because I'm not going to support you, period. End of story." And that was the involvement of Middletown at the time. Then I was promised that the stack that was giving the trouble, that was only going on when it was really needed. There were 2 other burners there that were going to come offline. And would I please be patient for a couple of years, because they were coming down behind us, I guess probably where some of these hiking trails are now, with the natural gas. And it was going to take a couple of years. If I remember correctly, way back, it was something like, I don't know, $48 million or whatever it was to do this project. But the promise was it would go under the river and there would be no more barge blending. Barge blending being the sludge, which was supposed to be oil, that came up the river. And the only way that oil got blended was through the barge slashing around coming up the river. That's what the electric company called blending. but the truth was it was barge blending. So they said, we're going to get rid of this as soon as the gas line comes through. Well, the gas line came through what, 20-something years ago? Still the problem is there. I do not trust NRG. I don't trust anything they're telling you down there. I have one file from DEP, which was very interesting. It was a report from DEP. I was told that these reports go directly from the plant to DEP. Nobody delivers them. They're automatically sent somehow. There were violations of that plant every 5 to 10 minutes for one solid month. And when I brought this up to DEP, I said, so what did you do about this? Well, we can't do anything because we don't have the power to fine anybody. So why the devil were they even recording any of this information is beyond me. All that information, nobody cared that for a whole month, this was all being sprayed all over us. Well, eventually those little mercury balls got smaller and smaller and smaller. So finally I couldn't see them anymore. And then as Don Mitchell and I discussed, well, you can't see them anymore, but now you're probably aspirating them, which is probably exactly what happened. There are probably 6 or 7 women on this street that have suffered from breast cancer. And they are all probably within, I don't know, maybe less than an 1/8, a 1/16 of a mile of me. That's not a coincidence. I mean, there may be other reasons why they became ill, I don't know. But certainly this didn't help. And that cluster is troubling to me because those women are in direct line as the crow flies with that stack, the tallest stack over there, which they're now saying they don't burn. I don't know. I don't trust what they're burning anymore. The truth is they burn whatever they feel like burning when they feel like burning it. And to answer somebody asked the question about, well, we've got enough power, you know, blah, blah, blah. Well, I was told that the ISO is who determines who gets the power, where the power goes, and what the price is. So I don't know anymore. I mean, I'm old now. There's not much I can do about it, but I did pay my dues on this subject. And it would be a shame. Portland is Portland, Middletown's Middletown, but we're supposed to be neighbors. The shoe were on the other foot, and that plant was on this side of the river. You can rest assured the Common Council will be doing something about it and coming over to Portland and saying, what are you doing to us? They're not a good neighbor. They're not a good neighbor. If they allow this to continue, it just goes on and on. It just builds and builds to a crescendo. I'm not a scientist. I'm not into all this clean air, the turbines and the gas and the hydrogen and all that. I just know I'm a resident who's breathing this stuff. And they are not people that keep their word. And anybody wants to see what I've done since 1997 or read any of the files that I have, you're certainly welcome to do it, at least to get some kind of a background with who you're working with down here. This is NRG now. And NRG made all these promises about that gas line and never kept them. So thank you for listening. And I hope that somebody on this board or the board, the total board, I agree with Andy. I think that you should make something, some sort of a declaration, some sort of something to Middletown to let them know what's happening over here. It may not be 365 days of the year, but depending upon the way that this wind is blowing, we get it all, and Middletown gets nothing. So thank you very much for listening. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Mara.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. So, board, are you okay with me putting it on for March 3rd?
Yes.
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 We will have more opportunity for public comment if some of our listeners want to hold on just for a bit. And Andy and Lou, if you would be prepared for March 3rd, that would be helpful.
Sure. I also have some good news.
Okay, Andy, let's hear the good
But
news.
would it be okay for anybody who's watching? I can put into the chat contact info for the Middletown Common Council. Doesn't have to come from the Board of Selectmen. You are individuals and you have every right to contact the Middletown Common Council. So with your permission, Susan, if that's okay, I'll just put that into the chat.
Yes, that's fine. Sure, it's public information. Thank you.
Yep. And there we go. Okay, so couple of updates and you know, kudos to the Board of Ed for greenlighting this along with you guys. The Biz Solar is going to be a reality soon. I believe Green Skies has been chosen as the vendor, and installation should be starting sometime this spring, which would be great. So that's kind of nice. That'll be 70 kilowatts on the back of Biz. Yay. The landfill solar project is jumping through hoops, and there are hoops. We've contracted with Rob Klee and Alan Sabins. I forget their business names, but I would say they are providing us with very solid advice. And one benefit, Susan shouldn't, no, actually I won't mention that. Sorry, I was just, I'll just move on. But we have an ideal spot, and the fact that it's on a landfill, a capped landfill, upon which really nothing else is gonna get built. You know, every indication is that that type of build is going to be looked upon favorably when we throw our hat into the ring and say, hey, we've got 2 megawatts worth of solar, you know, and we can talk costs. So that'll be good. The last thing, and this is a job for all of us here in Portland, is there's going to be, from my sources, there will most likely be increased federal support for renewables, whether it comes in infrastructure bills, whether it comes through the president's you know, climate goals. You know, there's most likely going to be more dollars flowing for the necessary renewable energy projects that are available. And if Portland, my recommendation, I'd be happy to help with this, is to take a hard look at all our facilities and see where we might do some installations. If our installations are ready to go when bid windows open, we're in a good spot.
Good news.
Yeah.
Thank you, Andrew, and thank you, Louis. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you, Andy.
See you again
My
soon.
pleasure. Thank you.
We'll
Thank
talk.
you, Andy.
We'll talk about car chargers soon.
Next item is refunds of excess payments. Jim?
Sure. I make a motion that we refund the amount of $460.69 to A-Car Leasing Ltd.
I will second that.
Thank you. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstentions? Motion carries unanimously.
I make a motion that we refund the amount of $50.20 to Robert T. Silliman.
Second it.
Seconded by Ralph. All in favor? Aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries.
And I make a motion that we refund the amount of $88.25 to JP Morgan Chase Bank, North America.
Second it.
Seconded by Ralph. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. The next item is status and committee reports. Are there any reports tonight?
I have a few items. I'll us update on Park and Rec. Library meets, I think, next week, but from Park and Rec standpoint, few things of note. Obviously, they're already starting to get inquiries about how we'll use those fields at the new park as we transition to using the fields as opposed to those other sites that will free up. So those requests are coming in as spring is quickly approaching us, that we may not feel it. So that's certainly one of those things that's going to be coming up. Along with that, and something probably, Susan, we probably talked about before, but I know that they are again looking to see about those permits that they drafted and brought before us a while back be revisited. So that will probably come up again very soon. If Nate hasn't already contacted you, I would assume that it's something that's going to be coming up soon for us. I think I've noted that we've had problems with beaver damage with dams out in the reservoir, and we do have I think he's actually a resident that works for DPH, and he is going to be going out there and trying to take a look at it and try to give some advice to Nate and to the town about what can be done. He hasn't been able to get out there yet, but unfortunately, he's going to get out there, and he helped us when we were looking at fishing at the reservoir, he helped with that. So he's a good asset to have. So he'll be getting out there and taking a look. They are talking about some sort of a Easter egg hunt of some sort to try to get something in. How it'll be shared on, more details will come out. They're working on it. So they are trying to offer something. Just unfortunately, we've offered the Easter egg hunt for so many years and the challenges that we now live in. So they're trying to do something to provide some sort of an event.
Great.
There are discussions about summer that are coming up. That does seem a lifetime away, given all the things that will happen between now and then, but you have to have those conversations, so they've started them. And the last thing they talked about, there was a little discussion about the park and the new park, and they did up them, and certainly Susan and I were on calls with the developer and with the engineers to talk about how we could button this up and complete the project. So hopefully we'll be getting close to that time. Certainly we need the spring to come to finish off some of the things, but those discussions are indeed underway. So that's my Park and Rec update.
I will tell the selectmen I sent letters to the YMCA and also to Tilcon Tomaso that we will not be using the fields essentially now forward. So I'll await their response and I'll let you know when I hear back. Because of the new park, we will not require the use of those leased fields. Any other committee reports tonight?
Yeah, there are a few things from the Board of Ed meeting. One, it was going to note as well that they did pass, that they unanimously passed and their support for the solar onto biz, and I think expressed that that's a very positive that's going on. They set the graduation date for 2021. It's going to be June 16th, which is a Wednesday. So that may, I think, could end up impacting one of our meetings, but either way, that's the Portland High School graduation. Eric Martin came on. He's the Director of Technology and Curriculum, also working as the principal for PVLA. But he did announce that the Board of Ed, basically they have created a Portland Public Schools Equity and Inclusion Coalition. Their goals are obviously to define equity in the Portland schools, to run an audit, start to evaluate what their starting point is, and obviously develop next steps. They've also started a process where they're looking for folks in the community, to basically be as volunteers and to work on that project. And I think it's also worth noting that the Board of Ed did receive, a little north of $300,000 in a grant, basically in funding that came in, had to do with COVID relief. And I know one of the things it's going to help with is that there are incremental costs, for example, with the running the PVLA and the extra work that the teachers do to pick up those extra sections. That's going to help fund some of that, as well as targeting some of the gap closure. We all know that the pandemic and the changing in school schedules had, creates challenges for educating, and this is going to help close some of those gaps. Switching to the water and sewer, the Board of Selectmen subcommittee, we met last night, continuing the discussions. The department is still having some challenges with some of the technology issues they're running into with respect to reading the meters, and this goes directly to some of the issues with the age of the meters and the equipment that we use to read them. It is not insignificant, the issues that they're working with and the number of corrections and things that they're doing with billing, and making sure that these the things are going out, basically that the readings are getting the information into the bills as accurately as possible. They're continuing to work on that. The bills did go out. Folks have been calling in when they have questions, and they've been, Bob did express last night that it works out well, that they're able, when that happens, to basically talk through the bills with folks so that folks know where the information's coming from and try to work everything out. So they, the department has been very willing to do that. We're continuing this discussion for alternate water sources. Again, that's got to be a top priority for us in terms of overall changing the cost model. That discussions, those are continuing. And I think one of the things that relates to the first issue is we did talk a little bit about trying to understand what the costs would be to start trying to update some meters, and how can we take a look at that. Basically, how can we look at trying to resolve some of the issues? There were various ideas that were put around. We know that, for example, the bill has gone out, but the billing has gone out a little bit late now. The bills went out in February. They're typically targeted earlier. There was some discussion about, is there a way to kind of to continue that and just try to work through some of those issues, with a little bit of the offset and billing, et cetera. At this point, there's just going to be more to follow on all of that as they try to work through those issues. So everybody who's on that system just has, be aware and be prepared. And also just one final note on the water and sewer is that Bob also did provide an update that currently the work that's scheduled to replace about 1,200 feet of main water line that has been very problematic over the last few years down on Brownstone Avenue, that is still on track for a spring replacement. There's been some positive developments in how they're able to work through the bidding process, and they're kind of rather the pricing process and being able to use Easy IQ. And I think they're looking to dot the I's and kind of get that moving in a more formal way. I think other than, that's probably the only updates I have really until we get to informal discussion.
All right, thank you. Nick, any public comment?
Yeah, we have one from Cynthia Roman. She says, "Thank you, Mara, for speaking on our behalf. I've lived on Middle Haddam Road since 1988 and experienced the particles in my yard too. I don't want to see it again, especially on top of the larger green issues Andy expressed that we should all be worrying about."
Thank you.
And that's all we have.
Thank you, Nick.
Yep.
So no other public comment at this point. And we'll move on to Board of Selectmen general informal discussion.
All right, I do have a few items to go over on that. One thing I wanted to put out is this coming Monday, February 22nd, Ruth Mayo has asked me to make sure that I announce this wherever we can. But the food bank is going to be hosting another food share distribution. This is going to be February 22nd, Monday at 1 p.m. is when it starts. It typically I think it ran about an hour and a half to 2 hours last time we did this. It's going to be, in this case, it's going to be a box of food similar to what was done a couple cycles ago. That'll have, produce, protein, cheese products, things of that nature in there, as well as some milk will come through with that. They did indicate, and this was a good change from last time, where the rules that Food Share had given us last time is that we could only put food in a car for one family or one party at a time. They did allow us now that if somebody's giving somebody a ride and there are two parties in the car, we can do two at a time, which will be helpful. This is a drive-through event. We're asking that folks will enter through from Freestone Avenue, exit onto Waverly. You do not get out of the vehicle. There we have volunteers, and unfortunately we've got sufficient volunteers this time. Where we'll put the food and the boxes and the milk right in the vehicle for folks. Also wanted to talk a little bit about, because it ties into some of the other discussions, but some of the other feedback that I've gotten, that I've been hearing is, and I think it's just worth saying, give a kudos to Bob Shea and the town crew, how the roads are looking. We've had a series of storms, and I know that as I've been out and about at different places, I have had several comments that I've heard where people have been generally pleased, especially with some of the challenges. I know, it was even noted last night that there were some challenges over the last weekend where it didn't look like things were going to be needed. And suddenly we started with a freeze, and became important that the crew got out there right away to start to do some additional treating. So thank you to them for that good work. It's nice to see that that's going smoothly, and that's working out very well. And I think also, we'd also be remiss just to again say thank you to Mary and her team, the library folks that are doing some really good work with vaccination, basically helping people get scheduled for vaccinations. Again, a lot of positive feedback from that that I've heard from some various sectors of folks that are in that age bracket where they've needed that assistance.
Thank you, Jim. Anyone else? There is going to be a parking ban starting at 7 a.m. tomorrow. I just got word on my text, so make sure your cars are off the road. Another storm is coming Thursday into Friday.
Mhm.
And thank you to everybody who helps keep us safe. I don't have anything on follow-up items under ethics ordinance, so with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Seconded by Rick Shar. All in favor? Aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries, and it is 9:22 p.m. Thank you, gentlemen. Nice to see everyone.
All right. Good night, everybody.
Aye.
Stay safe.